Hey everyone, I'm here to help you relax and drift off tonight. If you enjoy using these videos to fall asleep, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more calming content. Share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'd love to know. Now settle into a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's start unwinding together. The village of Avondale lay cradled between rolling meadows in the ancient forest of Elderglen. Here, day and night blurred into an everlasting twilight, and the seasons themselves seemed to delay their transitions. At the heart of Avondale, where the mist never fully dissipated and the air was permanently cool and damp, the bridge stood as the village's quiet enigma. Every local child grew up with the story. The bridge of endless longing, as some called it, was built to unite the two halves of the valley. Yet no traveler had ever seen its end. Over the years, scholars, romantics, and wanderers had tried and failed to cross it. All who attempted experienced an overwhelming sensation of walking towards something intangible, as if the distant shore receded with each hopeful step. Young Elias, a curious and restless dreamer who lived near the banks of the river, had often fantasized about the mysteries that might lie beyond. Late in the evenings, when the sky was painted in deep violets and ash-gray clouds, he would climb the worn steps of the bridge, feeling both the thrill of an unknown future and a lingering sadness that the other side was a myth. His eyes traced the worn carvings along the stone balustrade, which depicted scenes of joyful arrivals and tearful farewells, a silent narrative of hopes and eternal separation. Centuries ago, the bridge had been constructed by a reclusive architect known only as Ambrose Thorne. Local legends recounted that Ambrose, a man haunted by the loss of his beloved, had poured his unfulfilled dreams into his work. Every chisel mark on the weathered stone, every delicate pattern wrought in iron, bore the imprint of his sorrowful heart. It was said that he designed the bridge not to connect two banks of a river, but to bridge the gap between what is attainable and what is forever elusive. In a secret chamber hidden deep within the ruins of his now dilapidated mansion, a diary of Ambrose's was discovered by a wandering historian. Its pages were filled with cryptic verses and sketches of fantastical structures, a vision of an eternal crossing where lovers might meet, where destinies might be rewritten, and where the boundaries between hope and despair blurred. The final entry was particularly poignant. May the bridge serve as a reminder that while we may strive endlessly for the unreachable, in the struggle itself lies our true beauty. These words resonated among the villagers, who saw in the bridge both a monument to undying yearning and a symbol of life's bittersweet impermanence. It was during a midsummer festival, a celebration of light, love, and the ephemeral beauty of twilight, that Elias's curiosity about the bridge grew into an overwhelming compulsion. Amid the soft strains of a fiddle and the gentle murmur of whispered wishes, he found himself drawn to the bridge as if summoned by fate. Lanterns swayed in the warm summer breeze, and the scent of wildflowers and fresh rain filled the air. Yet despite the cheer and communal joy, Elias felt a tug at his heart, a yearning to finally traverse the bridge, to discover what lay on the other side, even if it was only ever a dream. The villagers gathered in the central square to share their own stories about the bridge, each narrative a blend of hope and resignation. An elderly woman recounted how, in her youth, she had once seen a glimmer of a lush, sunlit meadow beyond the bridge, a place of lost loves and second chances. A grieving widow whispered of a spectral figure crossing the bridge on moonlit nights, a ghostly presence that seemed to cry for reunions that could never be. As the festival reached its zenith, Elias resolved to cast aside his doubts and step onto the bridge, determined to follow its path no matter how elusive the destination. On a dew-laden morning, with the sky a soft tapestry of rose and lavender, Elias began his journey. His steps echoed on the ancient stones as he moved forward, immersed in thought. Each step was imbued with a sense of mystery and inevitability. He carried nothing but a small satchel filled with a few simple belongings, a handkerchief bearing his mother's embroidery, and the fervent hope that every step would somehow bring him closer to understanding the elusive nature of the bridge. As Elias walked, the river beneath him gurgled with a gentle insistence, and the swirling mist seemed to murmur forgotten tales. His path was long, and the distance ahead stretched into an infinite canvas of uncertainty. With every step he took, the land around him seemed to transform imperceptibly. The moss on the stones glistened, the trees whispered in a language older than time, and the horizon appeared to stretch out like an endless invitation. Yet every time Elias believed he saw the far bank, or a glimpse of the other side, the vision would vanish like a mirage, replaced by the same endless span of stone beneath his feet. Days turned into nights, and nights into timeless moments where he lost track of time completely. He encountered solitary travelers, each on their own endless quest, whose eyes held the quiet resignation of those who had once set out for unreachable dreams. They would share brief, cryptic smiles and say nothing more than, "The journey is its own reward." These enigmatic strangers left a profound impression on Elias, reinforcing the idea that the true essence of the bridge was not in reaching its elusive end, but in embracing the endless journey. One mist-shrouded evening, as Elias neared what he felt was the midpoint of his long journey, he heard something that made him pause, a soft, gentle whisper that seemed to emanate from the very stones of the bridge itself. Stopping in his tracks, he listened intently. The whisper was like the murmur of a long-forgotten lullaby, a soothing cadence that spoke of lost time, of love, and of dreams that once soared high, but now drifted like autumn leaves. The voices, indistinct, yet deeply resonant, filled Elias with an overwhelming sense of melancholy and hope all at once. He realized that the bridge was more than a physical structure. It was a threshold of memories, a liminal space where the collective echoes of every soul who had ever longed for something unattainable converged. As he pressed forward, the whispers grew stronger, each note carrying fragments of lives lived in joy and in sorrow. These voices, Elias began to understand, were not meant to be deciphered like cryptic codes, but to be felt with the heart. They spoke of beautiful impermanence, of the journey being the true destination rather than the unreachable end. As Elias walked on, he found that the bridge's endlessness began to alter him. His steps, once driven by the sheer force of curiosity, became measured and introspective. The solitude and the persistent echo of the whispers transformed his inner landscape. In the quiet hours of the night, under a vault of glittering stars, he began to confront the hidden corners of his own heart. Memories of childhood dreams, youthful ambitions, and suppressed longings surfaced like reflections in still water. Although some were tainted with the bitterness of regret, others were imbued with a gentle, luminous hope. Through this deep introspection, Elias discovered that his journey was less about finding a physical destination and more about rediscovering himself. In the silence of the endless bridge, his spirit underwent a quiet metamorphosis. He began to understand that the unreachable other side was not a failure or a curse, but an invitation to celebrate the transient beauty of each step along the way. Every stone he trod upon, every whisper carried by the wind, reminded him that the essence of life lay in the journey itself, not in a single definitive arrival. One day, as the mist parted ever so briefly, Elias caught sight of his own reflection in a pool of water that collected along the bridge's ancient stones. In that sudden glimpse, he realized that he had changed, not just in form, but in spirit. His eyes, once brimming with a restless yearning to reach what was unattainable, now shone with a quiet wisdom and acceptance. It was as if the countless steps and whispered voices had fused together into a single resounding truth. That time was not a linear destination to be reached, but a mosaic of moments, each fleeting and beautiful in its imperfection. Elias sat by the reflective pool for hours, journaling his thoughts and sketching the images that swirled before him. In his writings, he began to express a conviction that the bridge was a living entity, a silent teacher that imparted the wisdom of impermanence. With pen in hand, he recorded the paradox of the endless crossing, reflecting on how the very nature of the bridge mirrored the human condition, always striving, forever longing, yet finding solace in the endless journey of discovery. Over the course of his long journey, Elias encountered others who were drawn to the bridge's enigmatic allure. Travelers, artists, and seekers of truth. One such fellow wanderer was Miriam Gale, a poet whose verses captured the essence of heartbreak and undying hope. Miriam, too, had embarked on the journey from the opposite bank, driven by an ineffable need to confront her own unattained dreams. Their meeting was serendipitous, a quiet collision of two souls navigating the uncharted territory of the endless bridge. Over shared evenings, beneath the silver glow of twilight, Miriam and Elias exchanged stories of loss and aspiration. Together, they pondered the meaning of the unreachable end, and in those conversations, the bridge revealed itself as a vessel carrying the multitude of human experiences. Miriam's poetry infused Elias's journey with lyrical beauty, and together they began to see that every step taken on the bridge was a convergence of fates, dreams, and the silent voices of countless others who had walked similar paths. Their shared experiences led them to record an anthology of stories and reflections, a testament to the power of the journey over the destination. The anthology, later published as Steps into Eternity, became a cherished manuscript among those seeking to understand that even if the other side remains forever out of reach, the act of journeying is a gift in itself. As seasons turned and the eternal twilight of the bridge seemed to deepen, Elias and Miriam stood together near what they called the edge of the echoes, a particularly poignant section of the bridge where the mists were densest and the whispers strongest. Here they felt the palpable presence of those who had gone before, a collective memory woven into the very stones. It was at this sacred juncture that both realized the immutable truth. The bridge was a metaphor for life, where the pursuit of unreachable dreams was not a curse, but the very essence of existence. They understood that the bridge's perpetual stretch symbolized the endless nature of hope and human endeavor. Each misstep, every moment of despair, and every glimmer of unexpected joy was a note in the grand symphony of existence. While the other side remained forever elusive, the journey along the bridge was a pilgrimage of self-discovery, a reminder that what truly mattered was the collection of moments, experiences, and connections forged along the way. In the twilight years of his journey, Elias returned to Avondale, forever transformed by the endless crossing. The villagers, too, had begun to see the bridge in a new light, a monument not to despair, but to the enduring nature of the human spirit. The legend of the bridge that never reaches the other side became a source of inspiration for artists, philosophers, and dreamers. Festivals were held in its honor, where people gathered to celebrate the beauty of the journey, sharing their personal stories of hope, loss, and renewal. Elias and Miriam's anthology, Steps into Eternity, was recited in communal gatherings and taught in schools as a testament to the paradox of life, that the pursuit of the unreachable is the very act that makes existence profound. In quiet moments, villagers would stand upon the bridge, not with sorrow over what was unattained, but with gratitude for every step that had led them to that moment of quiet reflection. Elias's own journey, though not culminating in a physical arrival at the other side, became a legacy of wisdom and resilience. He often remarked that it was not the destination that mattered, but the echoes left behind in one's soul with every stride taken toward the unknown. Years later, long after Elias and Miriam had become part of the village lore, The bridge continued to stretch out endlessly, a silent reminder of the perennial quest for meaning. The people of Avondale preserved the bridge as a cherished landmark, its weathered stones, etched with the passage of countless dreams, bore testimony to lives lived in constant pursuit of that unattainable horizon. In the Museum of Avondale's history, dioramas and journals recounted the tale of the bridge and its transformative journey. Children grew up hearing the story as a bedtime fable, learning that in every life there is a bridge between aspiration and reality, a journey that is as important as any destination. Writers and poets, inspired by the bridge's perpetual mystery, composed verses that celebrated the beauty of never-ending pursuits, reminding everyone that the quest for one's dreams is eternal. Thus, the story of the bridge that never reaches the other side endures, a sprawling epic of hope, longing, and self-discovery. It is a tale that invites each traveler to ponder the journey of life, to honor the steps taken in pursuit of unreachable dreams, and to recognize that every moment of longing, every bittersweet echo, contributes to the tapestry of human experience. In the quiet reflection of every dawn, in the gentle whisper of every passing breeze, the bridge lives on, a perpetual promise that while the destination may forever elude us, the journey itself is an eternal gift. Long before modern memory recorded its tale, the harp was born in an era lost to the annals of time. In a secluded valley beneath storm-racked peaks, a gifted artisan named Lysander lived in solitude. His heart was heavy with grief for a love that had been snatched away by fate, a beloved muse whose presence had lit his world before vanishing like a wisp of smoke. Desperate to keep her memory alive, Lysander poured his sorrow and his soul into his craft. In the hush of a moonlit night, he fashioned a harp from the gnarled wood of an ancient tree and silvered its strings with the essence of his unending grief. The resulting instrument emitted a sound that, according to the village seers, captured the very soul of despair. Its notes carried echoes of lost embraces and unfulfilled promises, and it was said that whenever its music filled the air, even nature itself seemed to weep. Yet Lysander's creation was not without its curse. In his fervent desire to bind the memory of love to his art, he inadvertently sealed the harp with an enchantment of sorrow. Henceforth, the harp would be forever destined to play only songs of despair, a ceaseless elegy for love, loss, and the dark corners of the human heart. After Lysander's passing, the harp vanished into legend. For centuries, it moved from one sorrow-stricken soul to another, appearing in the hands of minstrel vagabonds, forlorn aristocrats, and haunted mystics. Each owner, drawn by the irresistible pull of its despairing melody, soon discovered that the instrument's music carried with it the weight of inescapable melancholy. In whispered legends across distant lands, travelers spoke of mournful strains heard in the dead of night, music that seemed to come from nowhere and linger long after the note had faded. In one tale, the harp resurfaced in a ruined castle in the Highlands, played by a forlorn bard named Rhys. His voice, a low and aching tenor, melded with the harp's lament, conjuring visions of ghostly lovers reunited under the spectral glow of a blood moon. Though Rhys's songs brought him momentary fame, they also brought ruin. His music, infused with the harp's sorrow, sank into his soul and left him a ghost of his former self. In each retelling, the harbinger of despair also offered a lesson. The embrace of deep sorrow was inextricably linked with the prospect of healing, should the heart have the fortitude to transform grief into understanding. In the modern age, in the bustling coastal town of Aramore, where the sea met cliffs with timeless majesty, a young librarian named Celeste Amory, known for her insatiable curiosity about legends and lost art, stumbled upon a curious exhibit in a dusty corner of an ancient antiquities store. Hidden beneath a faded velvet cloth lay the harp of sorrowful echoes, its intricate design and melancholic aura unmistakable despite the passing centuries. Intrigued by the harp's reputation and the sorrow that seemed to emanate from it, even in the dim light of the shop, Celeste acquired the instrument with a mix of trepidation and wonder. Returning to her small apartment lined with books and relics of forgotten lore, she found herself drawn to the harp as if it whispered secrets of distant ages. That very night, compelled by an impulse she could not deny, Celeste set the harp before a mirror and with trembling fingers strummed a single chord. The sound that resonated in the silent room was heart-wrenching, a pure, unadulterated note of despair that spoke directly to the deepest recesses of her soul. In that moment, as tears streamed down her face, she understood that this was no ordinary instrument. It was a portal to the rich tapestry of human sorrow, and perhaps through it, a means to transmute that sorrow into something transcendent. The nights that followed were a period of both torment and revelation for Celeste. As she played the harp, the music would swell into a symphony of despair, each note a delicate lament of hearts broken by time and misfortune. With every strum, she perceived visions of lives irrevocably altered by loss. Fleeting images of a young woman waiting by a rain-soaked window for a lover who would never return, of a soldier bidding farewell to his family on a foggy morning before marching into battle, of a child cradling a faded photograph of a parent who had vanished too soon. These visions, though deeply painful, carried with them the quiet promise that in remembering sorrow, one could also celebrate the beauty of what was once cherished. Celeste began to record her nightly performances in a series of journals, her entries detailing not only the technical aspects of the harp's music, but the raw emotions that surged like tidal waves in her heart. Through her writings, she uncovered a startling truth. The harp's despair was not meant to break the spirit, but rather to challenge it, to force its listeners to confront their innermost pain, and in doing so, to pave the way for healing. Word of Celeste's extraordinary connection to the harp of sorrowful echoes spread quietly at first through hushed conversations and heartfelt letters among the townsfolk. Soon, a small group of individuals, each bearing their own unseen wounds, began to seek solace in the haunting melody of the instrument. Among them was Adrian Cole, a failed playwright whose once bright career had been dimmed by personal tragedy. Marianne Pierce, a retired nurse whose gentle compassion had been worn away by years of loss. And Felix, a reclusive artist who communicated more through his paintings than with words. One chilly evening, under a crescent moon that cast silver light upon the seashore, Celeste organized a gathering in an abandoned music hall on the outskirts of Aramore. By candlelight, with the soft cadence of the harp filling the air, these wounded souls came together. Celeste played with an intensity born of raw emotion, and as the music soared, each listener was transported into their own private reverie of sorrow and remembrance. The haunting melody served as both a mirror and a balm, a reminder of the pain they had endured, but also a call to find beauty in the midst of heartache. In the collective vulnerability of that night, as tears mingled with whispered confessions and soft shared music, something remarkable occurred. The pain transformed. Each mournful note seemed to dissolve barriers, allowing hope to seep through the cracks of despair. It was in that fragile, fleeting communion that the true power of the harp was revealed, that by embracing the depths of sorrow, one might uncover the hidden strength to rebuild a shattered heart. Intrigued by the transformative power of the harp's music, Celeste delved into its enigmatic origins with renewed determination. Guided by ancient manuscripts, she learned that the harp had been crafted with a rare alchemical process, a fusion of grief, magic, and the artisan's own soul. It was said that during its creation, the strings were blessed with a ritual lament, ensuring that they vibrated with the echoes of every heartbreak and every tear shed by those who had passed through the veil of loss. This mystical process, while imbuing the instrument with its sorrowful resonance, had also granted it the power to reveal hidden truths about the human condition. Celeste's research led her to a remote mountain library where a reclusive sage, Master Alaric, guarded ancient texts on musical enchantments. Through careful study and long nights spent deciphering cryptic symbols, she began to piece together a theory. The harp functioned as a kind of emotional barometer, its music calibrated to the frequency of human despair. Yet paradoxically, it also possessed the capacity to transmute that despair into a source of empathy and renewal. This duality of despair intermingled with the promise of healing was the essence of the harp's curse and its blessing. The deeper Celeste delved into the mysteries of the harp, the more she found herself wrestling with her own buried memories. The instrument's songs began to unlock long-forgotten chapters of her past, a childhood marked by the loss of a cherished friend, the quiet sorrow of unrequited love, and the subtle pain of dreams that never came to fruition. Each session with the harp was a journey into a labyrinth of emotion, where joy and despair coexisted in an intricate dance. Not everyone who encountered the harp's music was prepared for its profound intensity. There were nights when its notes plunged listeners into a state of near crisis, forcing them to confront the darkest corners of their souls. In one particularly harrowing evening, as heavy rain pounded the windows and thunder roared like ancient grief, Celeste herself nearly succumbed to despair. Overwhelmed by the torrent of emotion, the weight of every loss and every shattered hope, she stood trembling before the instrument, on the brink of surrender. But in that moment, as her vision blurred with tears, she resolved to embrace the full spectrum of her feelings. In accepting her vulnerability, she discovered a resilience that allowed her to transform her pain into art, a phoenix rising from the ashes of her own desolation. As word of the transformative power of the harp of sorrowful echoes spread, Celeste's musical gatherings evolved into a sanctuary of healing. The abandoned music hall, once echoing with solitary laments, became a stage for a burgeoning movement of individuals seeking to reconcile with their past. People from all walks of life, poets, musicians, lovers, and wanderers, joined in communal sessions where the harp's melancholic strains offered a pathway toward emotional catharsis. Each meeting began with a period of silent reflection, during which the listeners would close their eyes and allow the plaintive notes to wash over them. Slowly, as the music deepened, they began to share stories, whispers of lost loves, confessions of regret, and declarations of hope amid hardship. Through these shared narratives, the collective despair was gently transmuted into a reservoir of empathy and solidarity. In that confluence of sorrow and kinship, every mournful chord resonated as a shared heartbeat, a reminder that while individual suffering may feel overwhelming, it is also the common thread that binds humanity together. The gatherings came to be known as evenings of sorrowful remembrance, and with each passing session, participants found themselves healing not only from their own wounds, but also learning the art of compassionate listening, an alchemy that turned despair into strength and vulnerability into beauty. Years flowed by like gentle streams through a valley of memories, and the harp of sorrowful echoes became more than a cursed relic. It grew into a symbol of transformation and shared human experience. Celeste's tireless work, both as a musician and a chronicler, was captured in a compendium titled Songs of the Wounded Heart. In its pages, she detailed the myriad ways in which the haunting melody had touched lives, rekindled lost hopes, and even inspired new creative endeavors. Local schools began teaching children not only the beauty of music, but also the importance of acknowledging sorrow as part of the tapestry of life. Art exhibitions, poetry slams, and intimate concerts celebrated the intertwined dance of despair and recovery. In every corner of Aramore and the surrounding region, the legacy of the harp echoed as a reminder that though life may be punctuated by moments of profound grief, these very moments can serve as catalysts for compassion, transformation, and ultimately healing. Celeste herself grew into a revered elder, a wise guardian of the shared memories and collective pain that had once threatened to overwhelm so many. With each passing generation, the legend of the harp and its sorrowful songs evolved from a tale of cursed lamentation into a hymn of hope and resilience. In the final phase of her long and tumultuous journey, Celeste dedicated herself to ensuring that the voice of the harp would never be silenced. On a tranquil autumn night, beneath a vast canopy of stars, she organized a grand memorial concert in the rejuvenated music hall, a celebration of life's bittersweet symphony. Here, the harp of sorrowful echoes played its final nocturne for a generation on the cusp of embracing both its heartbreak and its healing. As the delicate strains of the harp mingled with the gentle murmur of the gathered crowd, each note sparkled with the tears and joys of 1,000 untold stories. In that transcendent moment, time seemed to pause. The veil between pain and promise grew thinner until, for one miraculous instant, every soul in the hall found solace in the profound understanding that sorrow was not an end, but a precursor to renewal. The concert ended not in silence, but with a resounding chorus of applause, hopeful murmurs, and tearful smiles. A living testament to the power of vulnerability and the unyielding human capacity to rise, again and again, from the depths of despair. Long after Celeste's gentle hands had no longer coaxed the harp's lament from its silvered strings, the legacy of the harp of sorrowful echoes continued to resound. Its melancholic music became woven into the cultural fabric of Aramore, a symbol not of unending despair, but of the ever-resilient spirit of humanity. In quiet corners of cafes, university lecture halls, and intimate living rooms, the haunting strains of the harp, reproduced in exquisite recordings and stirring live performances, served as a reminder that even the deepest wounds can produce a melody of beauty. Children grew up hearing the myth of the haunted harp and learning that every tear shed, every sorrow endured, held the potential to give birth to a greater strength. Poets and musicians, inspired by Celeste's writings and songs of the wounded heart, composed odes to the interplay between pain and hope, ensuring that the memory of the harp would persist through every generation. Thus, the tale of the harp of sorrowful echoes endures, a sprawling epic of despair transformed into the symphony of healing, of pain transmuted into art, and of lives forever enriched by the understanding that within every sorrow there lies the seed of renewal. And so, as night falls gently on the world, the ethereal strains of the harp remind us that even in the darkest of hours, beauty can be born from the echoes of a wounded heart, and hope can emerge from the very songs of despair. For as long as the people of the little village of Larkwood can remember, there have been legends of a mansion that appears only when one gazes into reflective surfaces. It is said that during moments when reality is softened by the dusk, or when the silver light of the moon kisses still water, the image of a splendid manor materializes, a building of elegant spires, ornate balconies, and intricate stonework. Elders recall that this mansion, once known as House Mirabelle, was a center of opulence and secret passions in centuries past. Yet a calamitous fire and a series of personal tragedies caused the estate to vanish from human sight, leaving only its memories preserved in old portraits and diaries. Some claim that House Mirabelle was cursed, its grandeur destined only to exist in the realm of reflection, a world where time is malleable and truth hides in the interplay between light and shadow. In Larkwood, the legend is passed down through generations. At the annual Festival of Reflected Dreams, villagers gather to share recollections, poems, and even artworks inspired by the phantom image. Though many dismiss it as a mere trick of light, There are those who have seen in a quiet pond or an antique mirror the unmistakable silhouette of a mansion, complete with elegant windows and ivy-wrapped walls. These sightings are said to fill the heart with both yearning and melancholy, a bittersweet reminder of what once was and perhaps what might yet be recovered. Elena Moray, a young artist renowned in Larkwood for her evocative watercolors, first encountered the Phantom Mansion on a warm summer evening. Wandering alone beside Moonshadow Pond, a placid, mirror-like body of water hidden beyond the village's winding lanes, she was capturing the gentle play of twilight on her sketchpad. As the sun dipped lower and the sky blushed with the last streaks of day, Elena happened to glance at the pond's surface. There, shimmering against the deep blue water, stood the faint outline of a grand manor. At first, she thought it was an accidental trick of the light, a distortion of the water's undulations. But when she returned the next night with careful preparation, a tripod, a camera, and her trusty sketchbook, the image reappeared, more distinct and haunting than before. Elena spent hours in quiet wonder, tracing the elegant curves of arches, the delicate spires rising against the night, and the distant glow of windows that seemed to offer silent promises. The mansion looked transient, as if it existed on the threshold between dreams and reality. Determined to uncover its mystery, she resolved to document every nuance of its appearance. Little did she know that her discovery would ignite an obsession, drawing her into an intricate web of history, art, and the deepest recesses of the human heart. Back in Larkwood's modest public library, Elena began her research in earnest. In the brittle pages of a centuries-old town chronicle, she discovered the story of House Mirabelle, a once magnificent estate built by a wealthy patroness. Emilia Mirabelle, whose life was filled with passionate romance and sorrowful loss. House Mirabelle was famed for its beauty and its secret salons of artistic and intellectual exchange. However, one mysterious night, a raging fire consumed much of the estate. Emilia, overwhelmed by grief and despair, vanished without a trace, and the mansion, it was said, dissolved into the mists of time. Some accounts suggested that in a final act of desperation, Emilia had prayed for her home and her memories to be preserved beyond mortal decay. A miracle or a curse, depending on whom one asked. Fascinated by the possibility that the Phantom Mansion was in fact a reflection of House Mirabelle's lingering soul, Elena scoured local archives and interviewed elderly residents. Stories varied. Some spoke of strange sounds emanating from old ruins. Others recounted vivid dreams in which Emilia's voice urged them to remember the beauty of what was lost. Each piece of evidence, no matter how inconclusive, added layers to a tapestry of legend that called to Elena as a muse to her art. Inspired and haunted by the stories she had uncovered, Elena began to experiment with new techniques in her artwork. Late nights in her cluttered studio became devoted to painting the elusive mansion as it appeared in reflections. She sought to capture not just its physical form, but the emotional weight it carried, the sorrow of lost glory, the ghost of unfulfilled dreams. Every brushstroke was an attempt to bridge the gap between the reality of a forgotten past and the intangible allure of memory. Her paintings grew in size and intensity, each one a layered narrative in itself. In one, the mansion's silhouette was superimposed over a background of star-splattered heavens. In another, the reflective water bore hidden symbols that hinted at secret chambers and concealed corridors. Critics in nearby towns marveled at the haunting quality of her work, though few could pinpoint exactly what it evoked. To Elena, each completed painting was both a step closer to the truth and a reminder that some mysteries are meant to be experienced rather than solved. One night, as autumn deepened and the nights grew longer, Elena decided to return to Moonshadow Pond with a renewed sense of purpose. The air was cool, and the moon shone with a crisp silver clarity. With her easel set up on the bank and her heart open to what might appear, she waited in near silence. As midnight approached, the surface of the pond began to quiver under the caress of a gentle breeze. Then, as if by magic, the image of House Mirabelle grew vivid, a full, haunting vision that seemed to pulse with life. Overwhelmed by the sight, Elena sensed that this was no mere optical illusion. The mansion in the reflection appeared to be more than a static image. It shimmered, and its features shifted imperceptibly in concert with the passage of time. For a fleeting moment, she felt a profound pull, as if the mansion were calling her to step closer, to peer beyond its mirrored confines. In a burst of resolute impulse, Elena knelt at the edge of the pond and slowly extended her hand toward the shimmering surface. In that surreal instant, the boundary between her world and the reflected realm blurred. The ripples beneath her fingertips grew warmer, and for several heartbeats, she experienced a sensation of falling into another reality. A world of both wonder and wistful melancholy, where the essence of past lives and lost dreams filled the air with silent music. With a gasp, she withdrew her hand, terrified yet irrevocably enchanted. She understood that this was the portal, a gateway into the inner sanctum of forgotten memories, where the mansion existed as a living testament to what once was. In the days following her mystical encounter at the pond, Elena became consumed with the desire to explore this otherworldly realm. Accompanied by a small group of trusted friends and fellow dreamers, she organized nocturnal expeditions to various reflective surfaces throughout Larkwood. In one such expedition, at a rain-soaked courtyard of an abandoned mill, they witnessed the mansion again, a fleeting apparition in a shard of broken mirror. Each sighting was unique. Sometimes the mansion appeared pristine and regal, other times weathered and sorrowful, as if bearing the scars of centuries. During one expedition, as they stood before an old warped mirror in an abandoned hallway of a crumbling manor, a spectral figure slowly materialized in the reflected image. It was Amelia Mirabelle herself. The figure was indistinct at first, a wisp of light, a curl of mist, but gradually it took on the shape of a dignified woman with eyes brimming with both sadness and hope. Amelia's silent gaze seemed to beckon them onward, imparting an unspoken invitation to learn the mansion's secrets. The group, mesmerized, could only watch as Amelia's image faded, leaving behind a lingering glow and an air of profound mystery. Elena came to understand that the phantom mansion was not a specter of despair, but rather a beacon of remembrance, a physical manifestation of collective memory that urged the living not to forget the beauty and tragedy of the past. Through her successive visits and the careful documentation of every reflection, she pieced together a theory. House Mirabelle had been more than a grand estate. It was a center for dreams, where ideas and love were nurtured and shared. Its sudden disappearance left a void, a gulf in the collective heart of Larkwood. And so the mansion continued to exist in the reflections, a longing echo of a time when dreams were vivid and life brimming with possibility. Galvanized by this realization, Elena began to share her experiences openly. She organized community gatherings at Moonshadow Pond, where people were invited to gaze into the water's depths and recall their own forgotten dreams. Poets recited verses of hope and lament, while elderly residents shared anecdotes of lost love and regained aspirations. The act of collectively witnessing the mansion in reflections became a cathartic ritual, a poignant reminder that the spirit of the past can inspire the promise of tomorrow. Word of these gatherings and the haunting beauty of the Phantom Mansion soon spread far beyond Larkwood. The town, once considered a quiet backwater, found itself transformed into a hub of artistic and philosophical exploration. The annual Festival of Reflections was established, a celebration of memory, art, and the enduring resonance of dreams. During the festival, every reflective surface in the town was adorned with lanterns and art installations, public fountains, antique mirrors, and even rain-washed windows became canvases upon which the mansion's image danced. At the heart of the festival, Moonshadow Pond was transformed into a magical arena. Residents and visitors gathered around its still waters as dusk gave way to night. Under the gentle glow of the moon and surrounded by soft music and the murmurs of shared memories, the mansion's image would appear with astounding clarity. In these transcendent moments, the townsfolk found solace in the realization that the past was never truly lost. It existed perpetually in the interplay of light and reflection, waiting to awaken their deepest longings and inspire new dreams. As the Festival of Reflections grew in renown, Elena's work inspired profound personal transformations among the people of Larkwood. Individuals who had long suppressed their dreams, weighed down by the burdens of modern life, found new courage in the mansion's silent testament. A middle-aged school teacher rediscovered her passion for writing, igniting a talent that would later inspire generations of students. A widowed gardener who had once lost the will to nurture anything beyond sorrow, re-engaged with life and began creating lush, vibrant landscapes that echoed the spirit of House Mirabelle. Artists produced stunning works that fused the ethereal beauty of the mansion with the tangible, lived experiences of the townspeople. For Elena herself, the journey had been as transformative as it was mysterious. The repeated encounters with the reflected mansion led her to confront her own hidden hopes and regrets. In the solitude of her studio, she composed a series of intricate paintings that captured the mansion in its various moods. From the exuberant glow of a dream remembered to the soft melancholy of an aspiration nearly forgotten. Each piece was a meditation on time and memory, a testament to the idea that even in the reflective silence of loss, there is an ever-renewing promise of hope. Now, many years later, as Elena grew older and the legends of Larkwood matured into timeless lore, the phantom mansion of reflected realms remained a potent symbol of the human condition. Elena's journals, filled with painstaking observations, sketches, and personal reflections, were compiled into a beloved volume titled Reflections of Mirabelle. Dreams Reborn in Light. This work became a cherished heirloom for the town, passed down from one generation to the next, a constant reminder that even the most ephemeral images can carry the weight of eternal truth. In a newly built cultural center on the outskirts of Larkwood, a structure designed with soaring, reflective glass walls that captured the interplay of sunlight and shadow, the legend of the mansion was enshrined. Visitors from across the land came to stand before a massive, interactive mirror installation that at just the right moment revealed the ethereal contours of House Mirabelle. Each observer found in the mirror a personal vision, a glimpse of what they had once dreamed, a memory of love long past, or the quiet promise of renewal. On crisp evenings when the world is hushed and the silver moon reigns high, one may still wander through Larkwood and glimpse the phantom mansion in a puddle after rain, in the gentle ripples of a fountain, or in the antique mirror of a family home. It continues to whisper its silent stories, a mansion that exists solely in reflections, a keeper of forgotten dreams and enduring hope. The legacy of House Mirabelle is not merely a tale of loss. It is a celebration of the beauty in remembering, in reclaiming what was once cherished, and in daring to dream once more. In every reflective surface the mansion endures, a timeless echo of the past intermingling with the promise of a future where every hidden truth may find its light. For the people of Larkwood, the Phantom Mansion is a constant reminder that life's most profound beauty lies in the delicate interplay between memory and imagination, between what is seen and what is felt in the quiet depths of the soul. Thus, the story of the mansion that appears in Reflections lives on as an epic of hope and renewal, a tale that invites every seeker to look deeply into the mirrors of their own hearts, to remember and to dream. In the modest town of Ravencrest, Nestled between fog-laden hills and ancient forests lived Jonathan Ellis, a sensitive and introspective man burdened with unspoken grief. Jonathan had grown up listening to his grandmother's stories of enchanted artifacts and ghostly omens. When she passed away unexpectedly, she left him a modest estate that included a long-forgotten clock housed in a secluded wing of an old Victorian home. The clock's design was peculiar. Its face was carved with intricate symbols resembling labyrinthine patterns, and its pendulum swung with an almost hypnotic precision. Its hands, though ornate and delicately wrought, did not move in the manner of a conventional timepiece. Late one stormy night, as thunder rumbled in the distance and lightning painted eerie silhouettes against the curtains, Jonathan discovered that the clock would begin to tick only when sleep's dark veil descended upon him. Awakening in the middle of the night, drenched in cold sweat, he would hear the sound, a slow, deliberate tick, echoing through the silent corridors of his subconscious. At first, he believed it to be a figment of his imagination, but over time, the phenomenon became impossible to ignore. Each tick was accompanied by vivid nightmares, disturbing visions of crumbling facades, anguished faces, and unyielding darkness. Jonathan soon learned that the clock was not marking conventional time, but was calling forth the rhythm of his deepest fears. Troubled by these recurring terrors, Jonathan began his quest for answers. He searched through his grandmother's old journals and discovered cryptic entries in which she mentioned the clock of shadows and the legends of a timekeeper whose pulse was intertwined with nightmares. According to one fated passage, the clock had been created centuries ago by a reclusive artisan rumored to have dabbled in occult arts. Driven by grief and a desire to eternalize a love that had been lost, the artisan had infused the clock with a sorrowful magic. The artifact, intended perhaps as a reminder of the fleeting nature of time and the inevitable touch of mortality, had become cursed, a device that only came to life in the realm of dreams, where remorse and fear reigned supreme. Jonathan visited local antiquarians and consulted scholars of folklore, piecing together a disjointed narrative of a clock whose ticking was said to measure the heartbeat of nightmares. Some accounts described it as a beacon for those tormented by guilt or loss, while others hinted that it was a relic tied to an ancient tragedy, an unspeakable loss that had forever scarred the town. The more he learned, the more he began to understand that the clock was no mere object of curiosity. It was an emissary of human vulnerability, a reflection of inner darkness that could not be banished by daylight. Determined to confront the curse that held him captive each night, Jonathan resolved to explore the boundaries between wakefulness and sleep. He set up a small research space in his attic, where he installed recording devices and journals to document each encounter with the clock's eerie rhythm. Night after night, as he drifted into dreams, he would awaken to meticulously record every detail of his nightmares. A haunting montage of desolation, haunted faces, and cryptic messages murmured on the wind. In one particularly vivid nightmare, Jonathan found himself wandering through a vast, decaying city where the clock's rhythmic ticks resounded like mournful drum beats. Shadows moved of their own volition along shattered alleyways, while ghostly figures beckoned silently from the darkness. A spectral voice carrying the weight of untold sorrow intoned, "Time is the keeper of all that is forgotten." Waking in a cold sweat, Jonathan realized that the nightmare was not random. It was a message, a desperate echo of a past fraught with loss. Each terrifying vision revealed fragments of a hidden history, urging him to unearth the secret of the clock's origin. Driven by these revelations, Jonathan delved deeper into the history of the artisan who had forged the clock. His research led him to an obscure village in the mountains, where locals spoke in hushed whispers of a brilliant craftsman known only as Lucien de Marais. Lucien, they said, had once been a passionate lover whose world was shattered by the untimely death of his beloved. Consumed by grief and desperate to hold on to her memory, he began to work in solitude, imbuing his creations with the raw essence of his heartache. The clock was his masterpiece, a timepiece that transcended mortal chronology to capture the eternal sorrow of lost love. Jonathan uncovered old letters and sketches in a forgotten archive, where Lucian had written of binding time to the pulse of the heart and forging a link between the living and the lost. Though the artisan's life was tragically short, his legacy endured in the cursed mechanism of the clock. These documents hinted that the clock was originally intended as a conduit for healing, a way to honor the ephemeral nature of love, rather than to torment the bearer with endless nightmares. But something had gone awry in its creation, and instead of offering solace, the clock had become a vessel for unrelenting grief. Armed with knowledge of Lucian's tragic intent and the secrets of the artisan's heart, Jonathan resolved to break the curse. He gathered his research and, using ancient instructions from a deciphered journal entry, attempted a ritual of unbinding, a ceremony meant to release the tormented energies trapped within the clock. The ritual was complex, involving carefully prepared incense, the recitation of incantations in a long-forgotten tongue, and the symbolic dismantling of a miniature model of the clock constructed from silver and obsidian. In the stillness of a moonlit night, in the very room where the cursed clock loomed silently over his study, Jonathan began the ritual. With each measured phrase, he felt the weight of the nightmares lighten, as if the oppressive gloom of his dreams was gradually being peeled away layer by layer. The clock's ticks, once erratic and chilling, began to slow, merging into a singular, haunting cadence. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as though the ghostly chorus of his nightmares was dissolving into a soft, almost comforting murmur. Yet even as the ritual unfolded, not all was easily overcome. The darkness fought back fiercely. A surge of spectral energy burst forth, igniting a tempest of nightmarish visions that threatened to drag Jonathan into a chasm of despair. In that turbulent moment, he understood that the curse was as much a part of him as it was an external affliction. It was woven into the fabric of his deepest fears and unhealed wounds, a reminder that true liberation required not the expulsion of darkness, but the gentle embrace and understanding of one's own pain. In the aftermath of the tumultuous ritual, Jonathan began a long and arduous process of healing. The clock, though still present, had relinquished much of its malignant unpredictability. Its ticking had become a low, steady refrain, one that no longer invaded his nights with violent nightmares, but served as a somber reminder of the delicate balance between darkness and light. Jonathan recognized that the clock had been both a tormentor and a teacher. Its curse had forced him to confront his innermost sorrows, and in doing so, it had revealed a profound truth, that every human soul carries within it both the capacity for deep despair and the power to heal. With this understanding, Jonathan began to document his journey in a comprehensive tome entitled The Ticks of Remembrance. In it, he chronicled not only the technical details of the ritual and the artisan's tragic legacy, but also his personal transformation, his gradual evolution from a man haunted by nightmares into one who had learned to listen to the quiet lessons of his own heart. His writings resonated with others who had suffered similar losses, offering them a pathway toward self-acceptance and the possibility of renewal through the acknowledgement of pain. News of Jonathan's work spread throughout Ravencrest and beyond. People who had long hidden their sorrows in silence began to seek him out. In community gatherings held in the Old Manor's parlor, Jonathan would share his experiences, inviting others to speak of the nightmares that had plagued them. These sessions grew into intimate circles of healing, where the shared cadence of personal grief slowly transformed into a collective anthem of resilience. Members of this unwitting community Poets, widows, survivors of loss found solace in Jonathan's guidance. They discovered that the cursed clock, with its relentless ticking, was not solely a harbinger of despair, but also a reminder that time, no matter how tumultuous, marches forward. Its sound became a metaphor for life itself, a sequence of moments filled with both agony and beauty, sorrow and unexpected joy. Through shared storytelling and ritual meditations, the once isolated town began to weave its wounds into tapestries of strength and its collective nightmares into dreams of hope. As the years unfolded, the curse of the clock evolved into something unexpectedly beautiful. Rather than being a symbol of relentless torment, it came to represent the eternal interplay of memory and healing. The clock was still a reminder of past sorrow, but its presence now encouraged introspection and spiritual growth. Ravencrest's folk began to incorporate its mysterious ticks into cultural ceremonies, a nightly vigil of remembrance, where families gathered to honor those they had lost and to share stories of triumph over darkness. At one particularly poignant vigil held on the anniversary of the artisan's creation of the cursed ring, the clock's ticking was heard in perfect, measured intervals, each beat echoing a heartbeat, a tribute to lives lived and lessons learned. The community, with Jonathan's steady leadership, dedicated a section of the town's central square to what they called the Hall of Echoes, where the clock, now carefully restored and cherished as a relic of both pain and perseverance, was enshrined. Here visitors could sit in quiet reflection, listening to the soft, rhythmic ticking that had once haunted nights but now inspired hope. Decades later, Jonathan's transformative journey became a foundational myth for Ravencrest, a tale told by elders to children as a reminder that even the most unsettling nightmares can nurture the seeds of profound healing. Jonathan had long passed into legend himself, but his writings, captured in the ticks of remembrance, continued to guide those struggling with grief. The clock, ever present in the town's history, was regarded with reverence by scholars, poets, and everyday souls alike. In academic circles and community forums alike, debates flourished about the true nature of the cursed clock. Some argued it was merely a relic imbued with stray energies from a long-forgotten era. Others saw it as an active, sentient witness to the human condition, its relentless ticking a mirror, reflecting the ebb and flow of sorrow and hope. Yet all who listened to its cadence agreed on one immutable truth, that the passage of time, regardless of its haunting imperfections, was the medium through which the spirit found the courage to face life's endless challenges. In the latter years of his life, as the shadows grew longer and the memories richer, Jonathan often sat by the window of his modest cottage, listening to the soft, steady tick of the clock. There, in the embrace of solitude tempered by years of introspection, he found a quiet satisfaction. The nightmares that had once robbed him of sleep had become the crucible in which his soul was forged, tempered by pain yet illuminated by the possibility of renewal. He smiled faintly, knowing that his journey, from the torment of sleepless nights to the soft, healing rhythm of acceptance, was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Jonathan's teachings were passed down like a treasured heirloom. New generations of Ravencrest learned that while nightmares might carry the scars of sorrow, they also held within them the latent power of transformation. In every tick of the cursed clock, there lay an invitation to acknowledge the past, to embrace its lessons, and to find within one's own heart a path toward healing. Long after Jonathan Ellis's final sunset, the story of the clock that only ticks in nightmares remained etched into the very soul of Ravencrest. The once haunting sounds of the clock had transcended their original curse, evolving into a quiet, enduring hymn. A reminder that even amidst the darkest night, the persistent ticking of time carries within it the promise of dawn. In a small museum dedicated to the town's mysterious legacy, The clock now hung in a case alongside Jonathan's manuscripts and photographs of community vigils. Visitors from far and wide came to listen to its rhythmic beat, a sound that now, rather than instilling fear, evoked a sense of profound connection to the continuum of time and memory. Schools recited passages from woody ticks of remembrance, and poets wrote odes to the delicate beauty found in the balance of nightmares and dreams. Thus, the saga of the cursed clock, the object that only ticked in nightmares, endures as a sprawling epic of despair transformed into hope, of torment refined into wisdom, and of a community that learned, through time, that even the most eerie sounds can harmonize into a symphony of healing. In every measured tick, in every whispered note of memory, there lies an eternal promise that while nightmares may visit and dreams may fade, the heartbeat of life continues ever onward, echoing through the corridors of time as a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. Lady Mirabelle Ravenscroft had been the heart and soul of Ravenscroft Manor. Born into privilege and tragedy, she had graced society with her elegance and poetic melancholy. In her youth, her smile was radiant, a blend of gentle kindness and wistful longing that hinted at secrets only the heart could know. When death claimed her prematurely, her portrait was commissioned by her grieving husband, Sir Alistair Ravenscroft, to immortalize her beauty and preserve her legacy. Painted by a renowned artist whose own soul was rumored to have been touched by the supernatural, the portrait captured not just the physical likeness of Lady Mirabelle, but also the ineffable melancholy that defined her life. Over time, the portrait became a cherished heirloom, one that appeared to possess a life of its own. In the cool light of day, the image was serene and solemn, but when dusk fell, a subtle change seemed to occur. A twitch of the lips, the softening or sharpening of the eyes, and those who observed closely felt as though they were witnessing the awakening of a lost spirit. It was in the early days of the manor's new inheritance that young Thomas Hawthorne first noticed the peculiar phenomenon. Thomas, a sensitive and imaginative scholar, newly arrived to catalog the estate's history, had spent many an evening poring over dusty ledgers and faded letters in the manor's library. Late one evening, as a silver sliver of moonlight filtered through stained glass, he paused in his work to glance at the portrait that hung in a secluded gallery. Expecting to see the usual stately expression of Lady Mirabelle, he was startled to find her smile had shifted. There was a mysterious glimmer in her eyes, as if she were silently beckoning him closer. At first, Thomas believed his eyes played tricks on him, perhaps the result of exhaustion or the flickering candlelight. But on subsequent nights, with careful deliberation, he documented the changes. Each time the clock struck midnight, the subtle alteration grew slightly more pronounced. A hint of sorrow in the corner of her mouth here, a mischievous lift of her brows there. Determined to understand this inexplicable occurrence, Thomas began to keep a meticulous record, a journal filled with sketches, observations, and tentative theories about the nature of the transformation. Driven by an insatiable curiosity, Thomas delved into the records of the portrait's creation. Hidden within a bundle of yellowed correspondence between Sir Alistair and the artist, he discovered the name of the painter, Edmond Lenoir, a man of extraordinary talent whose life was steeped in mystery and rumored to have flirted with occult practices. According to the letters, Lenoir was fascinated by the concept of capturing the soul on canvas and had believed that art could serve as a conduit between the seen and unseen realms. He had experimented with rare pigments and enigmatic rituals, claiming that his methods allowed him to imbue his work with a fragment of true life. One cryptic passage in the correspondence read, "May her eyes, when darkened by the veil of night, awaken and see beyond mortal sorrows, and may her smile betray secrets of paradise lost." These words set Thomas's heart ablaze with possibility. Could the transformation of Lady Mirabelle's visage be the very fulfillment of Lenoir's arcane ambition? The notion that an artist's hand could inadvertently unlock a portal to the spirit world both terrified and fascinated him. Thomas began to suspect that the portrait was not merely a depiction of a long-departed beauty, but a living relic, one that straddled the boundary between life and the afterlife. As the weeks passed, Thomas's research unearthed further evidence that connected the portrait to local folklore. The servants' quarters and the manor's oldest residents spoke of an old legend, that of the Midnight Mirror, a mystical object believed to reflect the hidden desires and unspoken sorrows of those who gazed upon it. Over centuries, the tale evolved until it became intertwined with the portrait of Lady Mirabelle. It was said that if one were to stare into the painted eyes at the witching hour, one might catch a glimpse of one's own buried dreams and regrets, the mirror of a soul laid bare in the quiet dark. This legend provided a chilling context for the changes Thomas had observed. Perhaps Lady Mirabelle's shifting expression was not simply a quirk of paint drying over time. It was a deliberate, supernatural act, a form of communication from beyond the veil, inviting those who dared to confront their innermost selves. With each tick of the old grandfather clock in the manor, the line between observer and observed began to blur. Thomas felt increasingly drawn to the portrait, as if it were reaching out with its spectral gaze to share secrets meant only for the brave. Haunted by restless nights and driven by the need for answers, Thomas began to notice subtle phenomena beyond the mere change in expression. On nights when the transformation was at its peak, the air in the gallery would grow strangely cool, and a faint sound, like the soft laughter of a long-lost memory, could be heard just at the edge of perception. One such night, while alone with the portrait in near total darkness, Thomas thought he heard a whisper. It was soft and sorrowful, yet imbued with a timeless wisdom. "Remember me," the voice seemed to murmur, echoing through the empty corridor of his thoughts. Trembling with both fear and wonder, Thomas pressed his hand against the cool surface of the frame. In that moment, the painted eyes of Lady Mirabelle seemed to glisten, as if wet with unshed tears. Whether it was truly the spirit of the long-departed lady, or simply the confluence of grief and eerie suggestion, Thomas knew that the portrait was alive in a way that defied rational explanation. He redoubled his efforts to capture every detail of the nightly change, determined to decipher its message and uncover its origin. News of Thomas's experiences eventually reached Eleanor Fairfax, a reclusive medium renowned in the region for her uncanny ability to communicate with spirits. Intrigued and empathetic, Eleanor invited Thomas to her secluded cottage on the outskirts of the manor. In a room lit only by the glow of a single moonbeam, the two sat before the portrait. Eleanor's eyes widened as she observed the subtle shifts in Lady Mirabelle's visage. "It is as if she speaks to you," Eleanor whispered, her voice trembling with reverence. "She is calling out from beyond, a message of love, regret, and perhaps redemption." That night, Eleanor performed a quiet seance, her soft incantations mingling with the rustling leaves outside. As the clock chimed the witching hour, the portrait's transformation became more pronounced. A slight furrowing of the brow and an almost imperceptible quiver of the lips. In the stillness, Eleanor claimed she saw, in the swirling patterns of the painted eyes, a vision of Lady Mirabelle standing in a sunlit field, her face a mosaic of joy and sorrow. "She is urging you," Eleanor intoned, "to remember the life she lived and the love she lost. Only by embracing her story can you unlock the secret that binds us both." Thomas, now caught between disbelief and a desperate yearning for understanding, listened as Eleanor described a vision of the past, a day when Lady Mirabelle, in her youth, had been offered a promise of eternal love and beauty that ended in heartbreak. The vision hinted that the portrait was a repository of those lost dreams, and that its nightly transformation was a manifestation of unhealed wounds yearning for closure. Determined to piece together this mystical puzzle, Thomas delved into the manor's forgotten archives. Scouring dusty volumes and brittle letters, he discovered hidden diaries detailing secret correspondences between Sir Alistair Ravenscroft and Edmund Lenoir, revealing that the artist had imbued the portrait with more than mere likeness. Lenoir wrote extensively about harnessing the soul's whisper through his art, a process that left behind an indelible mark on the very fabric of the painting. In one particularly chilling entry, Lenoir confessed that in the final strokes of his work, he had wept over the blank canvas of the future, pouring into the portrait a piece of his own despair, a piece meant to awaken the lost dreams of those who later beheld it. This revelation sent shivers down Thomas's spine. The portrait was not merely a memorial of the past, it was an ongoing dialogue between the painter, the subject, and every soul who gazed upon it in the silent hours of night. Determined to test this theory, Thomas arranged a solitary vigil in the gallery, armed with his journal and a recording device to capture any supernatural phenomena. As midnight approached, the gallery was cloaked in darkness, and the only sound was the steady, ambient hum of the manor's ancient heating system. Then, as if stirred by an unseen hand, the portrait began its nightly metamorphosis. Thomas recorded soft murmurs and the unmistakable sigh of a forgotten love. With tearful determination, he realized that every shifting expression was an invitation, an urging to recall lost dreams, to mend fractured hearts, and to give voice to the silent stories of a bygone era. Haunted yet inspired by his findings, Thomas began to see the portrait's nightly transformation as a catalyst for healing. At the suggestion of Eleanor Fairfax, he organized small gatherings in the manor where members of the community, those burdened by loss or wrestling with unfulfilled dreams, could come and share their own stories. In the quiet, ambient glow of candlelight, as the portrait shifted its expression into a myriad of silent emotions, participants found solace in their collective vulnerability. One evening, an elderly widower recounted how he had once lost hope after the death of his beloved wife, his eyes glistening as he described the echo of her laughter that he now faintly heard in the portrait's glimmering eyes. A young artist, her voice tentative yet resolute, spoke of the paintings she had abandoned in the wake of a crushing rejection. With each tale of heartbreak and lost ambition, the portrait seemed to respond, a slight softening of expression, a hint of a smile, an almost imperceptible glimmer of understanding in the painted eyes. For Thomas, these gatherings became the living embodiment of Lenoir's legacy. The portrait's nightly metamorphosis had transcended its haunting origins to become a ritual of remembrance, a portal through which individuals reconciled with the ghosts of their past. Through shared memory and whispered confession, what was once a source of quiet terror grew into a beacon of hope, suggesting that even the most dormant or forgotten dreams could be nurtured back to life. As seasons changed and the gatherings continued, an atmospheric transformation gripped Ravenscroft Manor. The gallery, once a somber chamber of silent dread, now resonated with gentle laughter and soft, wistful conversations. Community members began to see the portrait not as a cursed relic, but as a symbol of the eternal journey of the soul, a reminder that lost dreams, however faded, retain the power to inspire renewal. Thomas expanded his research, collaborating with scholars, psychologists, and mystics to delve into the intersections of art, memory, and healing. He discovered that the phenomenon of shifting expressions in portraits was not entirely unique. Ancient texts spoke of living paintings as repositories of the artist's passion and the subject's innermost essence. In this context, Lady Mirabelle's portrait, in its nightly transformation, was recast as an expression of collective memory, a chronicle that allowed each observer to confront the ephemeral nature of life and reclaim a part of what they thought had been lost forever. One crisp winter evening, as frost etchings adorned the manor's leaded windows, Thomas and his colleagues held a symposium in the Grand Hall. In hushed tones and measured debates, they discussed the possibility that Lenoir's original intent was not to haunt, but to heal, to provide a mirror through which the living might see their own capacity for resilience. The discussions were interwoven with personal testimonies. A grieving mother spoke of rediscovering hope. An exiled poet recalled finding his voice anew, and a solitary youth described how, in the soft glimmer of the portrait, he felt understood. With every shared insight, the portrait's transformation deepened, as if it acknowledged the slow, painful process of healing through remembrance. In the twilight of his years, Thomas became a revered figure in Ravenscroft, a guardian of the past and a guide for those yearning to find meaning in the interplay of memory and art. His journal, The Shifting Visage, was published and widely read, its pages resonating with the poetic cadence of loss and hope. Through his work, many came to see that the portrait of Lady Mirabelle was a living testament to the human spirit, a reminder that even when dreams fade, the spark of possibility endures, waiting to be rekindled by those willing to face their own darkness with courage and grace. The annual gatherings in the manor evolved into a celebrated festival of remembrance and creative expression. Artists, writers, and dreamers from distant lands journeyed to witness the living transformation of the portrait at midnight. In that enchanted hour, as the painted eyes of Lady Mirabelle shifted through a spectrum of emotions, joy, sorrow, longing, and finally serene acceptance, the crowd would collectively experience a catharsis, a shared moment of intimacy with the mysteries of the human heart. The manor itself seemed to awaken, its halls filled with the soft murmur of voices and the light of innumerable candles, echoing the timeless dance between past and present. Long after Thomas Ellis and his inner circle had become part of Ravenscroft's storied past, the portrait that changed expression at night continued to inspire awe and introspection. New generations, growing up amid the legends of the manor, learned to view the ever-changing visage not as an omen of melancholy, but as a gentle call to embrace every facet of one's existence. School children recited verses about Lady Mirabelle in class, while poets wrote odes to that mysterious shifting smile. In quiet moments under starlit skies, lovers would stand before the portrait and, in its mutable gaze, find solace in the shared promise that while time may alter all things, the beauty of memory, of dreams both lost and rediscovered, remains eternal. The legacy of the portrait lived on, a symbol of healing, of the necessity to confront one's inner darkness, and of the transformative power of art. In every flicker of its painted eyes there was a story, a secret, a promise that no matter how forgotten our dreams might seem, they continue to reside in the quiet recesses of our hearts, ready to be reawakened by the tender glow of midnight. And so, the portrait that changed its expression at night endures as a timeless echo of our collective souls, a reminder that even in the silence of darkness, hope finds its reflection in the ever-watchful, ever-loving gaze of a forgotten beauty.